Alright, hi guys, welcome to another tutorial that we're doing today, and we're going to be looking at rendering this scene, which is from blender.org. It's the classroom rendering benchmark. And the reason we're doing this is because I want to teach you a fairly hidden but very useful command if you're going to be rendering any scenes which have linked or appended assets. Now what I mean by that is if you, for example in this scene, all of these chairs, for example, have been imported using either link or append. And what that means is the actual models for these chairs and the textures isn't actually in this blend file that I've got loaded. And what that means is when you render it on multiple computers, they all have to have pretty much the same file structure. And I'll show you what that file structure looks like. So let's just open here. You can see this is the folder Classroom. So if I go up one level, you can see here's the folder Classroom. So if we go into assets, you can see here you've got chairs, you've got the model for the chair, and also if we were to go into textures, you'll find that there are, well, one of these files there should be some textures. Actually, I can't see them because I've got my filter set to blend files, but the gist of it is there's a whole bunch of other files that this scene needs, and when we use distributed rendering, we have to basically recreate this structure on every single computer. Or there's actually another way of doing it, which most people know about, which is about packing files. So packing files just is a way of making sure that everything is in the blend file. So you see you've got here external data. You can automatically pack files into the blend file, which will do that for you. You can pack everything, or you can unpack. And this sort of external data menu item here just helps you create one file which has everything in it, except for linked and appended files. So if I was to render this right now, even though I might select pack all, in fact I'll just render it as is. So I'm going to render it using our add-on crowd render, which if you don't know about it, check the link in the description below. It's a really easy way of creating a render farm out of just computers which you have around you on a network. So this is the crowd render panel. This is a new version that's coming out soon. So when you enable the add-on, this extra panel arrives, and then you press start, and then this panel populates itself with all this information. And here you see I've got a bunch of computers which are ready to render. So I'm just going to give this a render, and we'll see what happens. And this file hasn't been packed at all, and we'll just see what happens. Because if you were naively just going to use crowd render on a scene like this with appended assets, I want sort of to show you what that looks like. Okay, so after what was probably a lot longer a render than I imagined, you can see that it looks terrible. And the reason for that is, as I was explaining earlier, the distributed render needs to have all of the files necessary to render the scene on all the computers, and it doesn't. Because all I did using our add-on was basically just load the blend file, i.e. if I go open, just this one. And this file, obviously, it actually just links to all of the other assets, including textures. So one of the tools you can use is just good old-fashioned pack all into blend. So we're going to experiment. I'm going to save this file under a different name, and we're just going to see what each of these tools does until eventually we get to the right one, or the right combination of tools that actually packs everything that you need into just one blend file, which our system can then distribute to all of the other computers and render really, really fast, and actually get the image to look as it's supposed to look, because this isn't what it's supposed to look like, in case you're wondering, unless you're rendering a nice sort of psychedelic pink classroom. That's okay. Save as, not say. So we're going to save this as classroom underscore pack all. Just remember this is what we're experimenting with, because it's important that you know what each of these menu items does. So we'll go down here and we'll go, which one is it? Pack all into blend. Let's see what that does. That packed 18 files. So that sounds promising. Let's see what it actually did. Now it's packed 18 files into classroom pack all, and now what we've got to do is actually distribute them. Distribute that file with everything that's just been stuffed into it into all the other computers that I've got connected using our add-on. So the way to do that is in the crowd render panel. You see here, which I'll show you a bit more context where it is. So it's in render, properties, come down here, and then crowd render, and then expand it, and then we just hit resync, and fingers crossed this works. So I'll hit resync, and you'll see them all start to transfer the blend file across the network. And again, I'll speed this up. The file's going to be a little bit bigger than it was before. It starts at around 30 megabytes, but now we've stuffed 18 other files into it, which I'm presuming are texture files. So it's going to be a little bit bigger. Sorry, mate, I've got this lab booked. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. At 1 o'clock. Finished at 1. Sorry, I just had to tell someone off. Get out of my lab. No, I'm not like that. Obviously, though, if he uses one, if anyone comes in here and touches one of those computers, it could ruin everything. Not really ruin it, but you know what I mean. Oh, that's not great. Okay, James has to do a little bit of debugging then. One thing I will try doing though is just opening this file again. And I'll open it with trusted, pack all. So it's a little bit bigger, it's 47 megabytes now. Sorry, embarrassing technical moment, but bear with me. Ah, there we go, it just needed reopening. Okay, whew. So we've just changed the file. We've added 18 files, which I presume are texture files in it. So let's render this again and just see if we've got it right yet. Now, I don't think we have, because that command I know doesn't pack in things which have been linked or appended. But it's good just for your sake to see what happens when you use pack all and you've got appended assets. All right, let's give this a whirl. Holy smokes, that was quick. So there you go, another lesson. If you really want to get the best out of your GPUs, don't give them tiny little 16 by 16 tile sizes, at least in 2.79b official release, which is what I'm using. The later releases, I think the tile size doesn't matter anymore, it'll still be really quick. But as you can see from the image, which is slowly being built by all these machines, it looks a lot better. It looks nice, because we packed the texture files in, as I guessed it was doing. But we are still missing all the furniture, so I guess the next question is, how do we get all the furniture in now? The furniture, like the chairs and the tables and everything, that's all in the linked and appended files, and they're all on this computer here, not yet on all the other computers. So we're going to have to do something pretty similar to what we did just a moment ago when we packed texture files in. We're going to have to now find a way to pack all of the tables and chairs and other assets in. And they're the things which have been linked or appended. Now, you might be thinking, oh gosh, how do I do that? I mean, there's no command in this menu. If we go back into this menu, you can see all there is automatically pack into blend, which I think, someone in the comments correct me if I'm wrong, automatically just does what this guy does once. So when you pack all into blend, it just looks through your project, finds the libraries and packs everything in all at once. Except it doesn't do linked or appended files, which you link or append like this. And that's a big problem, because we just end up with, you know, a reasonably nice looking classroom in this case, but there's no furniture. It doesn't look like it's supposed to look. So now I'm going to show you the trick. This is the bit you've all been waiting for. This is a command which I don't know why no one, it's not that no one knows it, but I've talked to people that do tutorials, people who are quite prominent artists, and so many people don't know about this command. So I'm going to show you it, because it's really handy if you're going to do distributed rendering, either using our add-on, or if you're using just plain old net render, which comes with Blender, or if you're using any method like just, I think Moby Motion has got a video just to use basically placeholder files and a shared folder. I mean, there's a whole number of different ways of doing it, but if you're going to do any distributed rendering, which you need to if you're having a serious go at a short film animation or a complicated scene, this is a godsend. Okay, so how do we get the chairs and the tables and everything else onto all of the different computers I've got in the lab to render them and make this render really quick? Okay, this is how you do it. So we're going to search for pack, and you'll notice when I've I'll just do this again. Spacebar in either the viewport or the image editor, and then just type pack. And you'll notice you've got pack all into blend, which is the same command as this one, pack all into blend. But you'll also notice, pack blender libraries. So let's try that. That sounds interesting. This is the one that has been, I suppose, hidden in obscurity for a long time. So we'll just hit that guy. It'll go away and do something. I'm assuming it'll go away and do something. Anyway, we'll find out in a second. And then we can save this one as pack all libs. And save it. Okay, it's saved. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check. It's freaking huge. So although it didn't tell you it did anything, it went from 47 megabytes up to 189 megabytes. So I guess you kind of get the feeling now that, yeah, it's definitely stuffed a whole bunch of extra stuff in there. So let's just do the same thing again and see if we've got all the tables and shares. Okay, it says it's synced, but I know better than that. It's not actually synced properly because I just put a whole bunch of stuff in the blend file, and I know I'm going to have to send that data to each computer, so I'm going to do that now. So we're going to hit resync, and I'm going to speed this up because now it's going to be even longer, because you remember last time it was only 50 megabytes, now it's almost 4 times that, so in theory it's going to take about 4 times longer to transfer this data. But it will all be worth it if I get all the furniture back in the classroom and I suppose put everything back the way it's supposed to be and we render, and it looks nice. We're back and we've got the dreaded sync failed situation again. So I'm just going to step through a bit more carefully now just how I troubleshoot this, because it's quite clear that when you're packing stuff into a file, our system's going to complain a little bit. I won't go into the technical details too much about why that happens, but we will start with, first thing I always try is making sure the file is saved. So I'll just hit save. The reason for that is I'm going to use revert, and revert will basically revert to the last saved version of your file. So you want to make sure if you've made any important changes that you revert your file only after you've saved all those important changes, otherwise you'll lose them. Okay, so let's try revert. And so basically just reloads the blend file again, which gives our system another chance to process everything and just check. Okay, so if that doesn't work, the next thing to do, again, you should have saved it, is to open it, and if you've got scripts, make sure trusted is on. Just makes sure that all of your drives and everything that you actually want to be loaded will be loaded. And then pack all libs, because that's the one we want. That's the one we currently got loaded. Reopen the file again. And there we go, we've got everything synced. So if you guys have trouble with getting projects to sync which have multiple files in, try that nifty little trick and just see how you get on. Now unfortunately it means we've lost the images which we did render before, but you can just rewind the video and see those. So now we're going to see, actually before I do that I'm going to make sure this is all still set up properly. Yes it is, so we've got all of our computers set, the GPU computers have their GPU set, and the one which I wanted CPU on has got CPU set and a different tile size to make sure it's optimized. I've turned my laptop off because it's not going to be much use. I turned it off by just clicking this little camera icon, similar to in the outliner actually. In the outliner this means it won't render beige book. In our add-on it's kind of a similar idea. It won't actually use that computer to render. So that just helps in the case where I've got a laptop, I don't really want it trying to render because it's just not going to help much. I mean, all of these computers are workstations and they're quite powerful. Alright, so fingers crossed, we're going to render and hopefully we get a classroom with furniture in it this time. So here goes. I'll just put the panel back where it should be so we can watch. Anyway, if this takes a long time, I will speed it up. We'll probably be able to tell in a few seconds. Oh, no, that's pretty darn quick. Oh, I love having fast computers, it's so much better. And there, look, we've got furniture. Oh my gosh, it looks much better. So there you go, pack all into blend works. Yay! Sorry. Pack all into blend in conjunction with pack libraries. Now I'm going to get onto a very good point in a second, just after this is sort of finished doing it. Actually, no, sod it, I'm going to tell you now. I have cheated a little bit. Yes, I know, you're probably going to say, damn you, James, for cheating. What I had to do to get this to look like this is I had to go to each of the other files, which I'll show you how to do in a second. So all the models, so the chair, the table, and the coat stand, the lamps, they had textures which weren't packed into those blend files. And so the first time I actually tried this, I got furniture, but it was all pink because it was missing all of the textures it needed. Because what happens is when you pack libraries, unfortunately the library doesn't pack its own external files. So the blend file which has the chair in, when you use pack libraries from this file, it doesn't automatically pack all of the textures for the chair into the file for you. You have to do that manually, which means you actually have to go through a bit of a laborious exercise of going through each of the models and packing their texture files into the blend file and then saving them. But that takes quite a while. It would have been quite boring for you to sit and watch. So I'll demonstrate just using one file, and then you'll be able to pretty much do exactly the same thing that I have. It just makes this tutorial a lot shorter, and I don't know, makes me look like I know what I'm doing a bit more. Maybe not, I don't know, you guys be the judge. So there we have it, we have a proper classroom. Obviously I've turned the samples down a little bit because I didn't want it to render too slowly. So now I'm going to show you the other trick which I had to do because I ended up with pink furniture the first time I did this. So pretty much what you've got to do is, let's find the chair. So you find chairs, blend, you'd open this file up, and then inside you basically would have to do the whole external data, pack all into blend. Now it says here no new files have been packed because I've already done it. But basically for every single model I had to do this, because otherwise it wouldn't pack the materials in, and you'd end up with a pink chair or a pink table or something like that. Okay, so I want to give you a bit of a quick tour of all the features here, which are new for 0.16. What's new is a couple of things. Firstly, load balancing, you can now manually do it. So automatic is the computer firstly does a render with pretty much just a guess as to how much to give to each machine, which is if there are two machines, it just gives it half each. If you don't want it to guess on the first frame, then you can manually assign them, and you do that just by coming in here and going, oh, you know, I'm going to give a little bit more to Copernici, give him maybe, I don't know, 0.11. You might notice these other numbers change as well, and the reason that they do that is because there's an algorithm making sure that all of these add up to 1, because what you're doing in effect is saying, I want to give 11% of the screen area to the computer called Copernicus. It has to make sure that it renders the whole screen, so there's an algorithm which adjusts these to make sure they all add up to 1, because otherwise you're not going to render the whole scene, and that would probably make you irritated. But I don't want to use manual, I want to let the computer automatically load balance and find an optimum. This is probably better for when you're doing an animation. If you use automatic mode, it's actually probably better for that, because it may take a few rendered frames for it to actually find the optimal load balancing. Whereas manual is much better if you just want to do one frame really quick and you sort of know how fast each computer is relative to another. So it looks like it's going to take about a minute to render it, but then we've got all the other stuff that it's got to do. Okay, so we just finished rendering that benchmark. I did actually do a few others as well, just didn't record them. So we can see there was this one, which is 2 minutes 35, this one, 2 minutes 52, and obviously the one that we're just looking at. So now what we're going to do is render it using just my laptop and see how long that takes. And I'm going to turn the recording off because it's going to be not really a fair test. Well, I don't suppose it would actually matter, but I'm not going to record and render at the same time just because I think my machine will probably die and it'll take too long. Okay, and we're back. My computer, the laptop that I'm working from, got about 17 minutes 45 seconds, so quite a bit longer than using those other 8 computers, as you can imagine. So I guess that was a pretty good test. So let's just recap what we've learned. Particularly, we've learned the very cool pack Blender Libraries command, and you can find that very easily just by going to either the image editor window or 3D view window and just typing pack Blender Libraries. And we've also learned how to use, I guess, the crowd render add-on, a few of the new features that are coming in 0.16. And I hope this has been useful. And if it has been useful, then I'd really encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe. And see you next time.